I'd like to call the meeting to order for the PZA for December. Actually, December 17th. And can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Featherling?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Washington?
Present.
Mr. Tholen? Ms. Polk? Mr. Payton? Ms. Peters? Ms. Dunbar? Mr. Kinzinger?
Present.
Mr. Fairfield?
Present.
Mr. Smith? Mr. Swanson?
Present.
Mr. Dennell? Mr. Long?
Present.
Mr. Wheeler?
Present.
Mr. Seroy?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, first thing up is public comment. I got a few sheets here. We limited this to 15 minutes, and we have official time written down. So the first one I received this morning was from Kevin Prince at 4047 West 1000 South Road, K3, Illinois. Would you like to come up to the microphone over there on the my left, your right? It's on.
Is it
Ready to
on?
go. Yes, sir.
I'm here in regards to the special use permit for the heavy processing facility on the corner out there, section 05 of Limestone Township, the property that Municipal Bank owns. I think they assumed that from Terry Vaughn when he developed that subdivision out there, and whatever happened, happened. What exactly is this heavy processing facility going to be, or where are we at in the process, I guess, is my first question.
Yeah. Point of order. Can't answer questions. Gotcha. If you're going to stick around for a little bit, you'll hear what the process
Okay,
will be.
yeah,
from here
that's
on, okay?
exactly. And you're
Okay.
going to explain
Yes.
where they're at, an environmental impact study,
Yes.
the whole 9 yards.
Yes.
134 residents live within that mile,
Yes.
square mile.
Okay.
I don't see too many people here. I heard about this through word of mouth,
Okay.
and I live less than a mile from the facility.
Okay.
So a lot of confusion. A lot of people don't know what's going on, but I hope that a lot of this will be cleared up.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
So I have number 2 is Dennis Baker. Is he here? You step up to the mic, please. Give me your name and address.
Yes, sir. Dennis Baker, 4271 West 1000 South Road.
Okay.
And, you know, since Mr. O'Connor started this project, I don't know, 7 years ago, we've had a new road put in on the 1000 road there. And it was a complete resurface. And, you know, there must have been, since that time, 5,000 semis down that road going to the O'Connor property. And if anybody takes the time to look at this road and how it's been cracked up and abused, I'm just saying that when it comes time to resurface it again, that's a lot of extra money that we shouldn't be paying. And there is quite a bit of dust for this O'Connor project. So personally, I would like to see it eliminated, or at least come in off of 17 to go to his place, which still should be eliminated. I don't know why they couldn't go to the 6,000 road and somehow come in off 17 to eliminate a lot of road abuse anyway. So, okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Next up would be Linda Baker.
Well, my question was going to be about the heavy processing facility that was going to go less than half a mile away from my house too, but also the O'Connor. It's just ridiculous how many trucks go up and down the road, and I can't even keep the windows open on my side of my house because the dirt just blows in all the time. But you're going to answer some of those questions about the heavy, and also too, it's maddening to know I had to be known by a note in my mailbox to find out this meeting was even going on. We got it last night. I mean, how come this heavy processing facility can be put in a half a mile from my home, and we're not even aware of it.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Okay, that's the end of public comment then? It's the only one's up. Sure. Got some time left, right?
I had some pictures here. These are aerial dimensions.
We can't present any evidence at this time. You'd have to present it to Mr. Skimmerhorn's office through the planning department?
At the zoning board of appeals.
Yes. The zoning board of appeals meeting is on January 13th.
I just would like to know why Mr. O'Connor on his aerial photograph didn't show true dimensions between his operation and all the home.
Point of order. Yeah. We'll have to hold this discussion for the ZBA meeting, okay? On January 13th?
Can I still speak?
Sure.
Ron O'Connor introduced himself to me about 12 years ago, bought this property from Azzarelli's, and he was gonna dress it up and put a home on the back of it, which we've got legal paperwork that shows that's what was gonna be done from the county. For 10 years, he ran a landfill. Now he wants to do this on the back of it, and he broke his promise to all the neighbors. I was the point man for him. I told all these people he was not gonna do this, that the truck traffic was gonna stop, it was gonna cease, the dust, the dirt, the noise. It went on 24/7, still to this day. And what I ask of you is to hold him to his word. And don't allow this or any industrial development on an agricultural property that was planned to have a home put on it in a residential neighborhood. There's going to be truck traffic leaving with loads, not just bringing it in. So you're going to have twice the truck traffic.
Yeah. Okay. Can I have your name for the record, please, sir?
Larry Sheffer.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, that's the end of the public comment portion. First up, we'll do the approval of the minutes. Everyone got an email of the minutes from the last meeting. Does anyone have any additions or deletions? No, otherwise, we'll entertain a motion to approve them. Mr. Washington, Ms. Dunbar. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Delbert's up with the building report for November 2019. Got you on there, Del, 3.
Yes.
Okay.
In your packet, you have the building division report for November 2019. We issued a permit for one new home, 51 total permits with a total valuation of $664,000, and total revenues received was $13,120. It's a little low for December, but that is a slow month, or excuse me, November, but that is a slow month for the department as far as permits go, and it's usually weather dependent. Last year at the same time, we had issued 60 permits and had fees of $26,000.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody on board have any comments on that? No?
Motion to
Get a motion to approve it, the report. Okay, Mr. Donald. Oh, Swanson, I get you guys confused. Second, okay, Mr. Payton. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next up. Got a county clerk, Dan Henderson, report. Okay.
stormwater.
Okay, next up is the stormwater management portion. Mr. Skimmerhorn is going to present that to us.
Yep.
He's going to ask us about the floods again.
As we do every month and as a requirement of our MS4 program, I am required to ask this committee if they have any stormwater issues within their districts that they would like to let us know about.
Does anyone have anything they wish to speak about at this time? Okay, we'll move on.
Is that just for the board members?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to the next thing. It would be the zoning case, would be ZBA case 19-15. There's a request for a special use permit, number 24D, for heavy processing facility in an A1 agricultural district on a parcel generally situated in section 05 of Limestone Township, The petitioner is Municipal Bank, trust number 2583, property owner and applicant. At this time, I'm going to have Mr. Skimmelhorn run this by us real quick.
In your packet is a letter titled Municipal Bank Trust, which is a request by the applicant to have the case referred back to Zoning Board of Appeals for further deliberation. At the meeting December 9th, a lot of information was discussed and presented, and he did not feel that he had an adequate amount of time to address the issues.
Okay, is that it, Bill? Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
It's more of a statement. I think that to send it back also gives the residents out there time to actually hear what's going on, to know more about this. A lot of people devoted time to come here today. So this is the opportunity. And Del, what is the notification requirements when these types of hearings go out?
Legal requirement is that a certified mailing goes to each adjoining property owner. So if your property touches the property in question, you get a personal notification in the mail. That includes across the street. Everyone else, there is a notice that gets put in the newspaper,
That'd be in the Daily Journal.
would be the Daily Journal.
Daily Journal.
So what is the date of this meeting again for everybody?
January 13th.
13th, Monday, Monday night.
Since this is a continued case, there will be no new notifications.
So the intention is to go back and re-establish everything in that meeting so everybody knows exactly what's going on.
Yes, and allow actually both sides to present their information.
And then there'd be a large,
The 13th.
6 p.m. in this room.
right here. And there'll be plenty of time for public comment in that meeting also.
Yes, once first notification goes out, they're expected to follow it through the process, so additional notifications are not required.
Okay.
So I need a motion to pass that on or just pass it
No,
on?
it just goes back.
Okay, we'll get that to our next PZA meeting. Okay, for planning, Delbert has the Yankee Solar Farm decommissioning plan for discussion tonight, or today,
Yes.
sorry. I'd like to have him explain everything to everybody.
I will do my best. If you recall, last year we granted special use permits for upwards of about 38 solar farms. 8 of them actually got approved by the state, and we are currently starting to get building permit applications to actually build the solar farms. And the first one is the Yankee Solar Farm, which we do have a building permit application for. Part of that application process is that they must submit a decommissioning plan along with a financial security before we can issue a building permit. So,
Okay, Chairman Wheeler?
Thank you. I just have a question. Is this not in the city of Kankakee?
no,
This one is sitting outside of the city.
it is adjacent to the city of Kankakee, but it is outside the city of Kankakee.
It's right outside.
It's located, there is a map in your packet that shows where it's at, but it's basically, if you were to head west on River Road, you would run into this property. That T intersection at Route 45 and River Road it's on the west side of that. There's a house there, it'd be behind the house.
You have to forgive me, we saw like 60 of these
Yes, no, this,
last year, and I
it's-
wanted to make sure.
it's surrounded by the city of Kankakee on the back side and the north side, but this is actually in county jurisdiction.
Thank you.
I asked Mr. Brian Hartwig he's representing Soul America. He does have a presentation on this if you'd like to hear it.
Let's hear
We're
it.
not looking for a motion today, just to present the information and come back at next month's PZA for a decision.
Okay. We don't have to
Hartwig?
swear him in.
It does not need to be sworn.
I know. Yes, 17.
That microphone right there.
All right.
Oh, boy.
My name is Brian Hartwig. I'm with TRC Environmental. I'm an engineer, and TRC is a third-party environmental consulting company. We have
Can I get you to
done.
move up just a little bit so we can hear you better? There you go.
Great. We TRC provides engineering services for a variety of developers, including Soul America and many others in multiple counties throughout the state of Illinois and in the East Coast as well. So I'm here right now to talk about the Soul America's project. And to kind of start off a little bit, Soul America is a developer based out of Atlanta, Georgia, and they have an office here in Naperville, Illinois. They specialize in this type of development, being community solar, approximately 2 megawatt size arrays or systems. They have constructed and operated in excess of 50 of these already, mainly in the East Coast. And they have four of the they have 4 sites in Illinois that were awarded and will be developing this year. So here is the general property. The outline in the yellow is the property itself, with the blue being the actual facility, solar array itself inside the fence. Like I said, this is a 2 megawatt AC farm, and it sits on a disturbed area of about 15.6 acres on a 27.5 acre lot. The construction does not actually consist of any substantial grading, so by and large the site was sufficiently flat to where they could install it and not need to do anything major. See here, there are going to be about 8,640 solar panels, and they will be mounted on almost 1,955 steel posts, which are expected to be directly driven into the ground. Okay, so decommissioning activities generally consist of breaking down the panels, removing them, removing the racking system, and then removing all of your electrical equipment, including the pads, electrical wiring, so on and so forth. And then the equipment will be removed for either disposal at a landfill or recycled. Much of the materials can be recycled or reused. And then the final portions will be site stabilization. So here is the site layout of the proposed array, and you can generally see the rows that will be there. On the right side, you can see the highway, your road entrance, and there is a larger 18-foot wide road going into the array, which leads to the electrical equipment. And then there is a smaller road which goes southward towards the utility poles and the point of interconnection. So here's a picture of a site. We're going to go walk you backwards through the construction. This is a Solar America, similarly sized Solar America project out east. And at this point in the construction of it, you can kind of see where the racks have been installed, and in part some of the panels have been placed. So the decommissioning process will start off basically coming out in reverse order, which would be removing the panels, removing the equipment that causes it to. This is a single axis tracker, so there are motors on there that rotate the panels along the racking. So the first thing we'll do is we'll come out, remove the panels, and then remove the racking and pull the post. So as you can see, these posts are, in this case, and the ones that are proposed for this project are the same, or very similar, in that they're steel post I-beams or W-beams that are directly driven.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good. Oh, excuse me, in the back, can we get you guys to give a little silence so we can hear up here? Sorry, Mr. Wheeler.
Would you like me to repeat anything?
No, well, that last part right there.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So the posts in the ground are W beams or I beams, effectively larger flange I beams. They're directly driven in the ground, very much like what you see the guardrails along highways and stuff. It's basically the same thing. They come in and directly drive them in the ground. They'll come back out and pull them straight out. And then here is a very similar equipment pad. You have a transformer, some combiner boxes, inverters, and what their communications, which are all there. So you can see all of the electrical equipment is pretty well in a small area, and so they will basically come in, remove all of that very quickly. You have a couple of small concrete pads for the combiner boxes and your inverters, or the inverters on the post, and then the transformer. They'll remove those concrete pads, which are usually in the 6 to 8 inch thick range, and then they will pull out the gravel. So decommissioning cost, or the cost in this estimate, are basically are derived from this scope of work. You have they're all called out in this decommissioning plan, the requirements of what needs to be done in general terms. There are permitting fees. There are stormwater management fees and control requirements. There are the fees for the contractor to actually perform the work. And that includes insurance, labor costs, and any of their contractors' overhead costs and markups. The materials with salvage value are based on current market values and will be updated with the required periodic engineer estimates. The decommissioning plans in Kankakee County require an update every 3 years. And so as market conditions change, the plan value will also change if there are significant changes. But items that have recycling value include the chain link fence, which surrounds the facility, the steel piles, the solar panels themselves, the motors, the wiring for both the AC side and the DC side of the equipment, and then any of the equipment itself has some value. So the total costs here are for removal are in the neighborhood of $225,000 estimated, with approximately $125,000 in salvage value. So about $100,000 of net cost for removal is what has been estimated. And then the Sol America's typical assurance mechanism is a surety bond, but that is in process, still being worked through. So here is the table that's at the end of the costs are derived from in the decommissioning bond, or in the decommissioning plan. And I'm happy to talk through this if anybody has any questions. So,
Anybody on the board have any questions? Okay, Mr. Long?
So when you remove the piles and the panels and the associated equipment, what's left?
So the what will be on the ground is the native grasses that are planted as part of the construction that will be damaged per our stormwater permit. In order to get closure on the stormwater permit, that we'll have to do the decommissioning, we'll have to permanently stabilize the site. So they'll seed any damaged areas. This was brought up already. The decommission plan calls for seeding the entire area. But the reality is when it's constructed, is anything that is damaged through construction will be seeded in order to close. And then once growth has been achieved, then the IEPA will allow us to close out that stormwater permit. Now, this is farmland and is expected to be returned to farmland if the owner of the property so chooses to. And so they will be able to do what they want with it, return it to fields and crop. And I know that a farmer may wish to not have everything reseeded with grass prior to plowing everything in, but there are limits to what we'll have to do in order to close out the permit with the state. But there may be some exceptions allowed for farmland, and with the owner's consent. I'm not aware of that. I've not been in that situation.
So no concrete will be left
Nope.
with the pilings or
No.
the equipment is staged?
No, if for any reason a pile cannot be removed, like pulled back out, they'll be required to be go down below your plow line. 4 feet down is the minimum depth, or the maximum depth below grade that something can be left. So if by any reason they can't pull something out, it'll have to be dug out and then chopped off at 4 feet below grade and then filled back in. But the expectation is, and the normal procedure would be, to just come out with a piece of equipment that can grab it and just hydraulically yank it out. The wiring would be pulled where it can be. Anything, like I said, again, anything within 4 feet of grade will absolutely have to be removed. If they can't pull it, then they'll dig it out. But yeah, all gravel, the gravel road will be removed. The gravel around the electrical pads, if there's any on this one, we saw pictures on that site, they did, that will all have to be removed so that the ground can be returned to farm conditions.
Thank you.
Okay, Chairman Wheeler.
Thank you. Does that include filling up the holes where the piles were removed?
Yeah, the holes are, so we have to do these calculations for impervious area, are something on the order of 0.015 square feet. It's literally an I-beam that's like a half inch by half inch or 3/4 of an inch thick. So when you pull them out, there's not going to be really a hole left. That will just, the ground will reform. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Has TRC or Sol America conducted any decommissioning work prior?
So as I'm sure everybody here knows, these are very new. These systems have not been decommissioned. Most of the time, you know, we're looking at lifespans of 20 to 30 plus years. And I am not aware of any of these ever having gone through that life cycle yet. So.
Okay. So the resale and recycling estimate is a guess.
It is an engineer's estimate. Yes, it's an engineer's estimate based on what we see. I will say that on this estimate, a value of $5 a panel is placed on it. There will be always a secondary market for used panels. You know, we're aware that you know, technology will improve and that the panels themselves degrade over time, and so that at the end of the life cycle of this, the panels will not be as good as they are. But there is likely to be a secondary value to them. Other people have used values as high as $25 a panel, so 5 is actually a fairly conservative estimate that I see now. And as we, like I said, this value, this plan is required to be updated every 3 years by the county, and so if the markets do change as time goes on and we start to see that there is no value or the value changes, then the bond and the plan will have to be updated to reflect that.
Okay.
Okay, got it. What is the cost of a brand new panel? If it's $5 estimated for recycling or resale, what is the new value?
I believe for a 2 megawatt system. Now the value changes dramatically based on who's buying it, their buying power, the size of the project. But my understanding is, and please don't quote me on this because I have not directly purchased these, but in my conversations with developers, I think that the cost of panels is around between $1.5 and $2 million for a site of this size to purchase new.
Okay. And the way I understand Sol America, or through TRC, has entered into an ag impact mitigation agreement.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, it's Sol America. All developers for on agricultural land in the state of Illinois are required to.
Mr. Washington first, okay?
What is the estimated life cycle of a set of panels?
So 30 years is what they're expecting. This what the term of this agreement is. I believe it's 30 or 35 years, and so that would be the expectation that these panels will do that.
Thank you. Mr. Kinzinger.
I would like the county and the permit holder to consider in this bond that the maintenance of a current bond is the responsibility of the permit holder. So that if that not the county.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? I have a couple of questions. Does anybody else have any more? Okay, I have a couple questions for you. When you do damage when you construct the sites to the roads and intersections and shoulders and putting in culverts where they weren't before, are you responsible for any damage that you cause when you tear this thing out?
Yes.
Yes. Is that, I didn't see that included in the decommissioning plan that I looked at.
Sure. You know, typical contracting with someone like that would require them to, you know, they would have insurance and they'd be required to meet certain expectations that would be called out in the actual work. You know, this is a plan this isn't a specific decommissioning contract per se. This is the estimated cost with the intent of saying here are the general scope of things that will have to be done, and then and here are costs that we are assuming or predicting will be associated with that. At the time of decommissioning, a plan would need to be generated, including contracting with the whoever the various contractors are. And so part of those contracts would absolutely require site maintenance, repair of damage, as would be in any normal construction project.
Is that subject to a county or a township assessment of the property when you're done?
There would be they would have to come before the county for a permit. And so I would assume that the county can issue any kind of requirements in that permitting process.
Okay, so the erosion control that has to be up for 2 months afterwards, is somebody going to come back and get it, or is it going to be all bent up and twist it up and
they would be required to maintain that, and it, you know, as to, you know, to get your closure on the stormwater permit, you know, there would be, you have to maintain all your stormwater in good working order, and there are periodic requirements for inspections, but you would have to maintain all of that in order to get your closure on the permit.
We would not release the bond until it passes
Microphone.
final inspection.
Microphone.
So I say we would not release the bond until it passed final inspection.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, barring.
To let the committee know, I did send this up to the state's attorney's office and they are reviewing it as well.
Okay, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Kinzinger brought up something, and I think it's probably, while I don't want this to be a subcommittee, I could probably use the input of a couple people from this group as to not create a majority of a quorum, so we can start to run through this, because these types of decommissioning plans we're going to be seeing quite a lot of in the near and distant, you know, as we go forward. If the state expands, I think we should come up with a policy regarding this to have this committee work through. It will be specific to this, but other things. You know, there's a couple things in here that trouble me. It seems like we're accepting the, I want to say, fluctuations in the market on recyclables and things like that as a burden that we carry and not the industry. And I think we should talk about that. Because the cost of landfilling, the cost of recyclables, the cost of labor seem to be on us as part of this bond, where it says that there's only going to be $98,000 come from the corporation that's doing the solar panel install, or the company. And then this bond is based on what they see today is they're going to be able to get out of it. What happens if they can't get that out of it? That comes back to us. So I think we ought to have a small group of people that's not a subcommittee where we have to sit in here and debate this. We just get into an office and we sit down and talk and figure it out.
Okay.
So be looking for a
Will you
couple
be
of
putting that together, or?
Well, yeah, just people think about if they want to do this.
Okay.
You know, and just let me know.
Seems like
and I'll
we-
have to pick, because we only can have a couple.
Okay.
All right.
Seems like we talked a lot about it in the meetings when we approved the special use permits with decommissioning plan. And a lot of it's in the minutes from those meetings also. And I don't know if Delbert can come up with any things that other areas have done, or other counties have done.
This is very similar.
Very similar.
Yeah, same thing with wind farms. The process here is very similar. And that's why because of the fluctuations in the market, that's why we have it reviewed every 3 years to adjust for those.
Okay, so be a 3-year adjustment on them then?
And this is only one, I think Mr. Miller, was the Ag Impact Mitigation Agreement. That's another, basically a decommissioning plan that they have to file with the Department of Ag. So this is a secondary as well, so.
Okay. Okay, we'll get together on who's what when we come back before the next meeting.
Yeah, just let me know. Yeah, or let the chairman know, and we can do that, whatever your pleasure is.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a transportation update. Mr. Wilson's got the floor. Where are you going to talk from, sir? There you go.
Wilson.
At least I'm young enough, I didn't have to deal with Dennis the Menace, and then they came out with the second film, and it was all over again. So for the transit update, this is a kind of a funny one. What happens is IDOT reaches out to the transit providers and says, hey, you know, we're going to make some funds available. Who wants one? So everybody raises their hand and they say, okay, give us some ideas of some projects. What we postulated as part of our transit review, we have no intercom systems within the buses for rural transit, and our drivers are yelling out to the riders, and it startles the people in the front row if you're loud enough to hear in the back row. So we're asking for $15,000 for 15 intercoms, 1,000 a crack, to be placed in the buses. What's likely going to happen is they won't create a grant program. They're just going to send a grant agreement for Chairman Wheeler to sign, and we wanted to appropriately exercise this through a committee so the board knew when the grant agreement comes. We haven't formally applied for a grant. This is just kind of how this process works.
We do not expect any additional funds to come from the county as part of it. I know that's typically the topic that comes up, but likely this is a mid-June is kind of all started off, but we expect to see after the state shutdown comes off in the next calendar year, we expect to see the funds start to flow through. So we didn't want anybody to be caught unawares of the of the project, of the grant, but we likely will see it soon. So we wanted to work it through the committee if there are any questions about the project.
Okay, anything else, Ben?
Not under transit. No.
Okay, you want to hang for some old business here? Anyone have any old business? No, Delbert, you got anything?
No, new business.
New business, okay. Okay, we got something for new business, Delbert?
New business, me and Chairman
Featherling had been talking that he'd like to see the department do some, for lack of a better word, training of the Planning and Zoning Committee. And I thought that was a great idea, that we could have some sessions, especially on our slower agenda months, to help inform the committee. Problem is I'm not sure what you'd like to hear about. So if you give me some suggestions, and we'll have a presentation for the next month if there's anything that you would like to know more about. Zoning, recycling, land use, let me know.
Okay, special use permits. Mr. Kinzinger.
Exactly.
I would like to see some thought given to the rights of the property owner and the rights of the adjacent property owner.
Yes. Property owner rights are very important.
Property rights.
Okay. Mr. Wheeler?
Maybe the process on engineering for all of these solar farms. What is going to happen and what our responsibility it is, and what it is with like the drainage districts, the drainage boards in all these areas, the property owners, drainage tiles, all this stuff. What it is that we're going to be doing, and what the process is. Because now that they're going to be building them next year, it'd be good if this committee knew what Dell's group is doing.
Yeah.
Okay. That's more of a short discussion, but
Yeah.
we need to know. So
Well, there could be some outline things, an outline to follow for decommissioning. We could set it up where it's an actual step-by-step process that they have to follow and make sure they get all the permits they need.
Well, yeah, it's in order for them to get engineering permits. I'm talking about they have to account for the water flow,
erosion control, and all that stuff needs to be on there. So as we go along, I'm not talking about an hour reviews or anything. I just thought little, discussions about special use permits and restrictions and variations we can make of special use permits and industrial, and what each specific limitations for zonings are. So I think if you're going to leave it up to me, I guess I'll put up the first one to Dell, and then we'll go from there. Okay? Anything else wish to speak to that topic? No? Okay. I'm going to go with new business here. Ben wanted to discuss, about a month ago, we took a ride with Senator Sims and his associate, AJ Burse?
Chief of Staff, yeah.
Chief of Staff. Took quite a while to get that together. A lot of calls, emails, back and forth. And to make a long story short, they came out and we showed them some issues. We took a ride in a car, and we drove around and showed them our problems. And all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, we got a call that said they wanted to come look at it again. And this time he brought IDOT with them. So if Ben wanted to fill me in with the names and all the positions and everything.
We did a district drive around with Secretary Osan, and I wanted to, Chairman Wheeler asked that we reach out. When they did the drive around, they were very specific about the Senator's District. They were just focusing on projects in the Senator's District. So some of you received an email from me asking for projects. I've had a couple continuing conversations how the meeting go, and it seems appropriate just as I'm in front of the board or subsection of the board to explain kind of what all happened and how it worked. So we met up in Manteno with actually IDOT District 1. They didn't give us District 3 representatives, but I had Mark Rogers there with us, and he knows all the right people at District 3. But we were able to go through the existing Capitol Bill projects. So we went through the multi-year plan, highlighting some of our traffic needs, east-west traffic, safety issues, how universal access has impacted us. The secretary was able to see specifically what jobs will be done. We went through each one, and that right there is the north branch of the creek. That's the deck replacement we're talking about. He was able to see it. We ran out of Manteno Village Hall on 9 to 45. We stopped at Hicks Gas at 12,000. Just got out of the vehicles. At that point, we didn't have any specific projects to talk about. John hopped in with the senator and the secretary and was able to run down 12,000. We stopped again at Route 1 and 12,000. And I was telling a few people today, as we were standing there, 3 container trucks were backed up on northbound Route 1, turning left on a 12,000 to cut across the county. The secretary was very interested in how we were talking about enforcement issues surrounding truck traffic and speeding, and there's a piece that through Oxcart we will be training some of our sheriff's deputies on weight scaling, things like that. But it's a body issue. Then how do we take those deputies off the street to do just weight issues? How do we get access to scales? I think that this opens up an opportunity for us to ask for some maybe smaller funds, not $100 million worth of transportation issues on east-west traffic within the county, but potential funds for the scales, potential funds for training, or actually staff time for bodies, for deputies to do this enforcement. And Secretary Hassan was very big on how does the enforcement piece play in. So we were very happy to be touching on what our existing efforts are, but then what could the new efforts be. One of the projects we highlighted was the Route 1. We did a safety run through with IDOT in the county. Route 1 shoulders at 12,000 are being repaired, but it's not an improved intersection. We're filling in the shoulders because the trucks are turning there, but it's most certainly only a Band-Aid. So we were able to walk that with the secretary and show him exactly what we were talking about. For still thankful for this $126 million, very happy about all the funds that are being expended in Kankakee County. But there are still obviously some gaps, and we'd like to see some additional funds.
Okay, you summed it up pretty good. Sure, Mr. Searay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ben, I would be interested in the enforcement piece, even if we can't just utilize that on county highways, but also in townships where township road commissioners are complaining about overloaded trucks cutting through their townships. There's been complaints in my district that there's no way to enforce those trucks that are overloaded, or no way to catch them and write the tickets to keep them from cutting across township roads as well as highway roads. So,
and I can't speak on behalf of the sheriff. I mean, that's it's his camp that handles this, and we brought him in just to touch on how the training would work. But there are, through this Oxcart program that we're initiating for the overweight permitting, the responsible entity. So Mark will get an email saying, hey, this person has applied for this, and then he gets the opportunity, from my understanding, to approve the permit. We at least then know what the permits look like. As far as the scales are concerned, we currently do not have scales.
Right.
Kankakee has scales, and they do not, at least from last understanding, they do not have a trained enforcement officer to use them, and Bourbonnais has scales. So there is an opportunity there, just in the more immediate future, to borrow, or we can send, say you pulled over a vehicle that you suspected to be overweight, you can send them to a scale. You can say, meet me. And so I don't know if there's a partnership there with the existing scales. Former sheriff, if I understand Deputy right, I'm not in that business. We're trying to look at kind of quick solutions, and then talking to the secretary about more long-term solutions for improved access east-west. And during their route, they said we wanted to run down 12,000. They wanted to run up 45. We had projects there. They wanted to run down 12,000 to Route 1. So we're kind of constrained to where we drove. But obviously that issue isn't just at that area in the county.
I agree with you. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, and our idea was that if we had a system where we could do it, and then the word gets out there that we have, watching our trucks for safety, because a lot of those containers are leaning around the corner. it's either overloaded or the trailer's not designed to have a container in the center like they do with them. So it's a safety issue for falling on other cars and getting stuck in the side of the ditch and bending all the culverts over and doing all that kind of stuff. So we're going to be working on that pretty hard with him. I haven't had any communication from him yet, but I believe they were all going to be gone for a little bit. I think they won't be back till after the first of the year. So, but I will definitely be in touch with them. So, Mr. Long?
Just speaking from the west side of the county, one of the big issues for us, I think, is that reroute that the trucks are doing where they're getting off at Gilman, coming straight up Lehigh, trying to access Elwood Intermodal. There's a lot of 2-lane highways that are not constructed for those semis that they pass through, not to mention the damage they're doing to Warner Bridge Road from 9,000 north all the way down to the South County line. Kind of a big deal. Those 100,000 permitted trucks, a lot of them going through that area.
Well, and also they're wider and they're tearing up the shoulders of our roads, and it might not necessarily be making holes in the middles, but they're making lumpy intersections and breaking and crumbling the sides of the roads.
One could sit at the south end of Warner Bridge Road at that little parking area and see how many trucks and see the damage that they're doing to the south approach to the bridge.
Okay. Every time we came to an intersection, for some reason, it was like Ben was driving along. I don't want to say how fast we were going because it was, we had it, Senator and everything in the car with us. So, but
the camera's rolling.
Yeah, the cameras are rolling. We came up to an intersection at Route 1 and County Highway. Well, it would be County 12,000 actually. We call it, or I actually think it has a number. I don't know if it's 12 or not. But by the time we got up to that, Ben pulled over into a gravel area and we all started getting out of the cars, and there was 4 trucks that had caught up to us on the way. So they were going faster than we were going to catch up to us. So that'll give you an idea how fast they're driving on the roads. I've had calls from people in my district complaining about the trucks and getting their dogs killed, and they find their dog, half a mile down the road. Guy didn't even slow down enough to say sorry or anything. So they're going too fast through there. And I sat out there at 5 a.m. one time just to see if it was true. And I was talking to Sheriff Downey yesterday, is that I don't have a radar gun in my truck, but I can tell you when a truck's going way too fast. And they're driving on a tar and chip road. If somebody's coming the other way and they're going that fast, nobody has a chance. So it needs to be looked at, whether we need to mark the roads or change things around. It's going to be looked at shortly. So we're working on it. So anyone else have anything for new business? Okay, barring none, I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay. Mr. Miller. Second. Mr. Wall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Good night. See everybody tomorrow.